like it's something sacred. It's strange to think that these carpenters, ordinary people, became the quiet engineers behind Egypt's peace of mind. Locks weren't just for palaces. They protected grain stores, treasure chests, temple doors, even the small boxes where people kept jewelry and amulets. The word for key in ancient Egyptian, some scholars note, also meant to open life. A lock wasn't simply practical. It was symbolic, a boundary between the known and the hidden. You picture a temple priest walking by, robes whispering, his hands tucked inside his sleeves. He pauses to watch the craftsman, his face unreadable. The temple will need new locks before the festival of Opet, ones that no common thief could pick. He leans down and quietly commissions the work, his tone half reverent, half secretive. For the Egyptians, locking something away didn't just secure it. It transformed it into something mystical. If it was sealed, it was sacred. Historians still argue whether the designs of these locks were intentionally kept secret by priestly guilds, or whether knowledge simply passed down through families of carpenters. What we do know is that the same basic pin-tumbler mechanism, made of wood, served everyone from farmers to pharaohs. That kind of longevity doesn't happen by accident. It means someone figured out what worked, and no one dared improve it. One quirky tidbit: some locks were built into giant temple doors that required keys the size of walking sticks. Imagine the awkwardness of carrying a 1-meter-long wooden key through town. Less sleek security and more ancient gym membership. But it worked. The oversized design wasn't about inconvenience. It was symbolism again. The larger the key, the more important the threshold it opened. The master carpenter you're watching wipes his brow with the back of his hand. He sets the pins one by one into the bolt, listening for that subtle rattle that tells him they're loose but not sloppy. The apprentices hover behind him, holding oil lamps, eyes wide. The room flickers with golden light. Somewhere outside, the Nile laps softly against its banks. This lock he's making isn't for himself. He probably doesn't own a door worth locking. But when he fits that last pin and slides the key through the groove, he'll hear that same gentle click that echoes across time. It's a small victory, but it means something profound. He's just created certainty in a world that floods every year, where sand shifts, where even stone erodes. This tiny device, a piece of shaped wood, defies chaos. You can almost feel the satisfaction of that moment. The craftsman tests it, smiles faintly, and passes the finished bolt to his apprentice. Tomorrow it'll be installed on a temple storeroom, protecting offerings of incense and honey. Centuries later, thieves will pry at it, scholars will sketch it, and tourists will gawk at it behind glass. But tonight, under the flicker of an oil lamp, it's simply a job well done. And somewhere in that gentle pride, the kind that comes from making something perfectly balanced, you understand why the Egyptians' locks survived. They weren't built for profit or speed. They were built with patience. Each groove cut by someone who believed the gods noticed good workmanship. The carpenter leans back and exhales. The lock lies before him, simple and elegant. He doesn't know it yet, but he's just shaped a mechanism that will outlast dynasties, conquerors, and even time itself. You move through the quiet workshop again, this time drawn toward a table covered in half-carved wooden keys. They look nothing like the delicate brass ones jingling in your pocket. These are strange, chunky things, more like combs or tiny paddles than anything you'd expect to open a door. Each one is rough-hewn but deliberate, its pegs unevenly spaced like the teeth of some ancient instrument. You pick one up. It's heavier than it looks, smelling faintly of smoke and cedar sap. That odd shape isn't a mistake. The Egyptian key was meant to lift pins from a vertical bolt hidden inside the door, so the pegs had to match the exact position of those pins. The keyhole wasn't small either. It was often a wide slot cut straight through the wood. You'd insert the key upward, and tugged gently until you heard the pins pop free. A smooth upward motion, a muted click, and the bolt slid open. You can imagine someone 3,000 years ago performing that same motion. Perhaps a woman opening her family's grain chest at dawn. The air smells of bread dough and dust. She slides the key in, lifts, listens. There's a kind of grace to it. In a world where almost everything was done by hand, the ritual of unlocking must have felt strangely modern. A small reminder that human ingenuity could control the world, one wooden peg at a time. Historians still argue whether these locks were intentionally personalized or just varied due to human error. Each key was unique, and because the pegs were hand-cut, no two ever matched perfectly. That meant a lock built in Thebes might never be opened by a key from Memphis. It's the ancient equivalent of biometric security, just a lot more splinter-prone. You crouch to examine a broken example laid out beside the others. The bolt is cracked, but the pins are still in place. Tiny cylinders of hardwood, polished smooth by centuries of movement. One pin is slightly crooked, another carved from a different type of wood, perhaps replaced hastily after one too many forced openings. There's a fingerprint, fossilized in resin pressed into the grain. Maybe the carpenter sneezed mid-project. Maybe his apprentice was impatient. Either way, their accident has outlasted empires. A funny thought hits you. Ancient Egyptian keys were so big, people often carried them over their shoulders on cords, like handbags. Archaeologists have even found depictions of servants walking behind nobles holding keys like status symbols. The message was clear: I have something worth locking. Today we flash phones or watches. Back then, it was a key as long as your forearm. You picture a merchant locking up his storeroom before heading to the market. He slides the wooden bolt across, listens to the faint rattle inside, and ties the key around his waist. It's his livelihood, his password, his insurance policy. Without it, he'd lose everything to thieves or rats or neighbors with sticky fingers. The entire ritual, insert, lift, slide, secure, is an act of trust in both craftsmanship and the invisible idea of property.